Hello everybody and welcome to the Horror Game Tutorials Part 7 Episode 6, I believe. And in this one I'm going to go over some tips and tricks on how to set up your scene, how to create a level maybe in a sense, and how to kind of like texture walls, edit the UVs to make sure that it's projected correctly. How to create mesh duplicates, just a few little tricks and tips that I find helps me. So hopefully it will help you. So without further ado, let's jump in and I'll show you some things that I've learned along the way that maybe help you with your own games or projects. So first things first, I'm going to get this out of the way. So I've noticed a lot of people online, especially on YouTube. I've been doing a lot of searches recently on like custom projects, and this is not a personal dig at anybody. I mean, if this is just something you do, it's only because it's there. So if you ever create a project and you're going to shapes and you're dragging in a cube, and then you're kind of scaling this down to make a wall. Let's say you want to make a corridor, and if this is something that you're doing, try to get out of the habit of doing it. So let's say this is how you're creating your doorways, and I've seen a few people online doing this, and this, like I said, this is not a personal dig or an attack. This is me just trying to help you learn a better way. So I've seen this a few times, and then they'll scale this down, and then they'll throw in a texture on here, like let's say wallpaper, just so we can see it better. So now there's a couple of issues that we can clearly see. So the scaling's off on the textures, and this one's now compressed and unscalable. So the only way to fix that, in some people's sense, would be like, oh, let's just stretch it back out and then move that up, and then we'll just hide this bit above the ceiling. In the long run, doing that, the bigger the game gets, the bigger your levels become, you end up with like wasted texture call. So the graphics card having to render an image that it can't see. And yeah, performance hits over time will be quite big, especially when you're starting to get like hundreds and hundreds of these pieces with textures on. So a better way to do this, because we can't edit these tools here are for blocking out your level. So let's say you want to make a corridor, then the level designer, because you have different teams working on different things. So let's say you want to make a corridor, the level designer will block out a rough idea of how he wants things set up, and you'll have concept ideas, you'll have storyboarding, and then they'll make kind of like a rough scale of, oh yeah, I want the corridor to go this way, and I want there to be a 90-degree turn here, and then I want a doorway here. So then the level designer will speak to the concept artist and go, okay, so we could have maybe a doorway there, so we'll use this area for the doorway. And then once they have this rough idea set up, it's then down to the level designer to start detailing and then adding in all of those better looking props and textured props into the scene. So then they would get the textured ones, and then you'd go over these, and okay, so I want that wall there. So what you want to do, the first thing I always do when I'm making a level is I want scale. So let's get our mannequin into the scene, and we'll get the default mannequin in. So we've got this one into the scene. So this is going to give us a few things. It's going to give us a really good idea on scale. So your height, your width, and the depth to the scene. And it's also going to give us a good way of judging how big our doorways should be. Now we know that the head height is around there, so we'd want the doorway to be around that height. So we could have it like this. So then if we turn this sideways, is that a realistic size for a doorway? Maybe a little bit smaller. And then we know that that's kind of the, I'd say, the better way of doing doors, in a sense that now you have a scale. So now that we know how to judge size, we've got our mannequin in the scene. Let's get rid of all these. Get rid of that, and that. So how do we do it a better way? We go into modeling. So if you haven't got this enabled, go to plugins, model, modeling tools, and then we scroll down. There it is there. So you want to enable modeling tools editor mode, and then it might save, restart, save your project. And then we go to selection, we go to modeling. In here, we want to get used to using these at the top, not these ones, because these are the default engine assets and you can't edit these. So let's say I place that into the scene and I want to put a wallpaper texture back on this block, so it'll appear to be correct, but the problem is when I start stretching this out and the textures get all skew-whiffed and I can't do anything with that. I then can't go down to my trick down here and project, and then I can't edit this. So if I scale this down and then click apply or accept, cannot modify built-in engine asset. But if you go to box, drag a box into the scene so we can make a doorway, and then we go accept, scale to the height that we want. So let's bring the mannequin a bit closer, get a bit of an idea on the height, and then we want to place another one, not that one, sorry, this one. So Alt and left click and drag, and then we're going to make this one slightly thinner in the thickness, and then we're going to scale this out to the side. See how it's stretching the UVs? That's not a problem. And then we go up. So now we have a wall, and we can create a door piece. So let's scale this in, and we have our mannequin there for our size reference. We can place the mannequin just here to get our height reference, so we can see how tall it is. And then we can go up a little bit more. Okay, so there we have our door. Then what you can do is you highlight your wall, highlight your block, and then we go to mesh pool, and then difference AB, accept, and now we have a cutout for our doorway. And then what we can do then is if we add a texture, so this is going to create a nice clean cut hole for you. We've now got this piece that we can place in other areas for another doorway. Let's make that slightly thinner. Let's delete that one, and then drag Alt and drag that one. So now we have two doorways and they're both the same size, which is good. And then if we want to texture these, we can go down to the material and let's add a wallpaper to show you the projection mapping. So add a wallpaper, not necessarily that one, let's find another one. Nope. want one with a pattern on. There we go. So that looks okay, to be fair, but we can edit this because of this bit here. So what we're going to do, now we don't wallpaper the inside of a door frame, right? So we don't want that there. So we're going to click on our door frame, but we're going to notice that this is actually this. So if we go to project and I reset the scaling, notice this block in the background when I click accept. Now we don't want that to happen to all of our doorways because we might want different. So what we want to do is we want to highlight this doorway, go up to the top, and we're going to click on mesh duplicate and click accept. Now when we go down to project, we now have a separate mesh to this one, and then if we alter or edit this in any way, if you watch the grid pattern on this one behind, nothing changes. So let's fix the projection on this, set to default, and then we're going to go slightly into 1.5 and then slightly into 1.5. But what we want to do, we want to get rid of, click accept, we want to get rid of this bit in the center. If you notice, it's all stretched out. So easy way of doing that, I'm just going to move it up a little bit so we can see better what we're doing, especially down in this corner. We're going to go to matte edit, which is material edit, and then we're going to click on that, and then we can see here we've got some faces that we can actually draw on. Before we do that and left click, we're going to go to specify radius, set this to 1, and then we're going to click, and you'll notice now that it's highlighted red. We're going to do that again and again in all of these inside internal faces, again, all of these ones, and then we should have the full inside of that door frame red and selected faces, just like that. Don't click accept, don't get too far ahead of yourself. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up, not that one, sorry, we're going to click the plus button and open up a new index. So this is, if you look down here where it says element 0, it's not quite set yet. So this is adding a new material element to the mesh. So now we're going to go to none, because that's the one we just created. Let's go to white. So let's get a white just template just to show what it looks like. And then we're going to make sure it's selected here, because this is the one we've made. And then we're going to click assign active material and then click accept. So now you'll notice that everything else is wallpapered, but the door frame is now white. And the good thing about that is that we can then change that here to anything that we like. So we can set it to wood, or we can set it to back to white by clicking on the default or return to default value. And then if we want the, let's press the end key to set it to ground level. If we want the outside of the wall to have a different texture to the inside, so maybe this is the outside of the house, then you do the same thing. Highlight your wall, and then you go to material edit, and then you're going to drag over all the external faces of this door frame. Click the plus button, scroll down to none, select, let's just make red, oops, let's find anything really. There we go. And we're going to assign selected, make sure it's there, that one, and then assign, and then click accept. So now you've got one mesh with 3 material slots, and that's a way to edit your meshes created in your modeling mode. And then The good thing about that is that if you were to copy and paste this by holding Alt and left click and drag, you can then, in your modeling mode, you can click Mesh Dupe, and then you can set the default textures on this one by adjusting them here. So if we set the default textures here, whenever you click this default value, it'll go back to its original state. So now we have two doorways or door frames that we can adjust and set different textures to on the outside. And then we can make another, and then you just repeat the process. Make sure you click on the new one and then go to Mesh Duplicate. So whenever you edit the UVs, the projection mapping on this one, it won't change this one, and vice versa. If you change it on this one, it won't change this one. So there's another tip on how to make your door frames for your horror games, and each one of them now is going to be the right size for your character to walk through. Let's see actually if it's the same size. Yeah, because she's the same size as me. So now we have a nice door frame there to walk through. Okay, so that's pretty cool. What next? So let's say we've created our door frame, but we don't want to. Now if we try to adjust the scale of this and we click and drag to scale, if you notice what happens with the door, we're stretching the doorway. So a good way of doing that is if we highlight our door frame, go back into the modeling tool, and then we click on, make sure our door frame's highlighted, and then we click on Poly Edit. So this is going to highlight the edges, the corner vertices of your object. If you drag over these two and these bottom two, and then you adjust, you can slide that into the center to create a narrower door frame, and then you can do the same here and here, and you can slide that in to create a narrow door frame, and then click accept. So this is going to give you your door frame, but without the door shape or size changing. This is just another way. So if you notice there, because this one wasn't a duplicate of this, it's also affected this one as well. So that's why it's important to make duplications. So if we adjust this now and create a mesh dupe, click accept, and then we go back into Poly Edit, and let's just say we just move this one and click accept, this won't change. So that's just another good tip there to make sure that you're making duplicates, so you don't end up having a level full of door frames and you go, oh, I want this one to be smaller, and then you go back to your other ones after you just edited this because you can't see them, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll just quickly edit the polys in the corner of this one and this one, and I'll adjust them over like this, and then when you go back into your game, you can see that all of your door frames have now changed in size. So it's a good way of doing that. But yeah, I hope these tips help. Setting up your scenes and creating your own door frames, just basically a simple level design tip there. You can do all this in Blender. You can create your I think my hard drive's down. It's going to pop open on the screen, isn't it? Disconnecting itself. So you can create your own door frames and create your own ways, or that's a handy tip of making your own frames rather than relying on other people to do it. If you end up with skewift UVs like this, you can just go down to project and it will click and fix that for you, like so. So there you go, that's it for this one. I hope these tips help, and I'll keep on releasing tutorials as long as people keep on watching them. So thanks for your time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.